Hello, reduce music.
Thank you.
Kia ora, everyone. Welcome to this lovely talk about core competencies for the sound designers in the workplace. My name is Jade. I'm going to be kind of hosting today. I'm the audio director for Pickpock Games right here in Wellington. First of all, we're going to do a little bit of an introduction of each of us here. Yeah, I got to do this next slide. So, introducing the panelists. So, my name is, like I said, Jade. I'm from the Pickpock. I'm the audio director here. I'm going to tell a little bit about our background. Each one of us are going to talk a little bit about where we're from, because I think it's important to talk about how we got into game design or game audio design, because everybody has different stories about how we get into it. So I'm going to talk about my background a little bit. I was originally a DJ, started in 1998 and got into it as a vinyl DJ a long time ago, then ended up DJing around the world. It was quite fun. Ended up with Ministry of Sound Australia, DJing with them, playing house music. Then I joined SAE, went to SAE in Auckland in 2005 and learned how to be an audio engineer. And then after that, I got back into DJing and completely forgot everything that I learned at SAE, mainly because I was low income, from a low income background, and I really didn't have. I was working like 2 jobs at SAE and all that sort of stuff, and I really needed to pay my way through it, so I wasn't able to study as much. So then I ended up being back into DJing and then working on cruise ships as a DJ, and then also a cruise director, putting on my cruise voice, like, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," and I thoroughly enjoyed that. And then when I turned 30, I had a very early midlife crisis and couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So I ended up moving back to New Zealand. I was in Australia at the time, and refocused my mind and said, look, what do I want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a music producer. I want to be famous and do all this sort of stuff. And well, that didn't work out as planned, but I ended up joining the University of YouTube and relearning everything that I know of sound design, audio, music production. Just got all the computer music magazines, read all them, learned how to do that, and just continuously failed for about 2 to 3 years of learning and picking myself up and learning. And then about 2013, I got a break of working in theatre, doing a production called Arahanui, The Greatest Love, which I thought was a little theatre production, which ended up being a huge one at the St. James Theatre. Really got myself thrown into the deep end of composing and writing music and doing sound design for a huge theatre production with Kapa Theatre, which is like Māori theatre, and Kapa Haka, which was incredible. Introduced me to a guy called Jim Moriarty, and then from then on I ended up being right into my theatre and really making a lot of stuff for Kapa Haka, Te Mata Tini, and creating sound design, working with a lot of Māori instrumentation. And from then I decided to do a whole bunch of cold emails to a whole bunch of video game companies. So yeah, this is a quick lesson on the importance of follow-up emails. So I emailed the company, Pickpock got back to me, and they said, hey, we're not looking for anyone, but if we need anybody, we'll get back to you. And then I didn't hear from them, and then I emailed them about 2 months later and said, hey, I'm Jade, I'm looking for a job, remember me? And they went, yes, we'll get back to you very soon, we're currently releasing a title. Then they didn't get back to me, and then so I emailed them again about a month later. Hey, remember me, Jade? Applying for a role? And they went, yes, maybe in a month's time, we'll get back to you. And then a month later, they didn't get back to me. And then another month, they didn't get back to me. So then I did another email and said, hey, Andy, if he's not here, I'm looking for a job still. If you want to hire me, I'm good to go. And he went, oh, shit, sorry, Jade, can you start tomorrow? So then ended up joining Pickpock. They didn't have anything for me at the time. They just had a seat and they went, go do audio. And then from then I built my career through Pickpock. 28 games later, I'm now the audio director there. I have a staff, are fluctuating, but up to 6, now at 4 composers, sound designers, and we work on a whole bunch of titles and do all our front of house media as well, which I thoroughly enjoy. I also own a record label with this person who will be speaking next, focusing on alt rock, music, but we also want to be the bridge between music and games, because I live in this world that I straddle both worlds, so we're trying to work out what that actually means. I've done spoken enough. I'm going to hand you over to Broghan.
Hi everyone, my name's Broghan Blackshaw. My career in sound design, like my journey into sound design, is a bit more straightforward perhaps than Jade's one. I went to university to do jazz vocal performance and completed a postgraduate degree in that in 2013. And then I became a music teacher and also was in several bands and sort of like in the kind of music scene mostly. And then I met Jade. And we started working on some projects, like some music projects together, and I thought Jade's got a pretty cool job and I would like to do that job. So I taught myself for 6 years and then applied for the job 2 or 3 times and got it on the last one. So it's another lesson in persistence and continuing to try even if you don't get in the first time. Also ask for feedback on your reels and things that you submit so that you can get better, more quality information for the next time that you apply. That's pretty much me, to be honest, so I'll pass it on to Finn.
Hello, I'm Finn. I'm a composer, sound designer, and audio programmer. I'm probably the freshest to the industry out of us. But yeah, where does my journey start? I was originally a pianist. I did piano throughout school. Then when it was time to go to university, I didn't really have any idea what I was going to do, so I just picked a random subject, and that happened to be media design. Yeah, and it was kind of, 3 years later, I finished my media design degree and had absolutely no interest in being a designer. But fortunately, I had the opportunity through that course to work on some game projects, and through that also doing working on music and sound design, and I found that quite appealing. So the next year, I decided to just go straight into doing a postgraduate diploma in music, and just focused on building a portfolio of game audio. And quite serendipitously, I was able to just reach out to some of my friends from uni who were going into the games industry at the time, and have just asked if I could do audio for their projects for free, just for to build my portfolio. And that led to them showing their friends some of the stuff I'd done, and they ended up offering me a job composing for their game Trigger Witch. That was probably about like 2019. And around that time, I also applied for a job at Pickpock and got rejected.
Sorry.
That's cool. I'm over it. I don't really care, actually. It's in the past.
You're doing all right. You're doing all right.
I've been doing fine. Yeah. But yeah, and then for the next few years, kind of had like a few freelance projects, and then after NZGDC last year, actually, a friend of mine who I'd been talking to about doing sound for them potentially mentioned that they had met Paul, who was looking for help with his sound design projects. And so that's how I ended up joining Paul at Sound Creature Interactive. And yeah, that's me. Over to Paul.
Hi, Paul Fox. Yeah, good to be here. Good to hear more about my friends here. I just met Finn in person for the first time, actually, and yeah, we connected from last year's NZGDC because someone recommended him. So if you're thinking coming here might be good for that, there's a good example, I guess. And wow, I don't want to go on too long. I have a lot of stuff in my history, but I come from a fairly musical family, and but I didn't really get too much into any of the instruments I started learning as a child. But I also liked to mess around with my mother's tape recorder that she used to record her own voice while she was practicing singing, and I would do all kind of weird little things with tapes, recording things off the radio and my voice, and reading books into it. And anyway, so I've always been interested in sound, among other things, and played a lot of music in my 20s and got to do a lot of really cool stuff and toured around the world. And I'm from Los Angeles, and lots of music stuff, but playing to empty rooms a lot of the time. And but I loved what I was doing anyway. But I eventually went back to school, and where I'm from, we have these schools called city college, junior college, 2-year kind of university things, sort of similar to Polytech here, I guess. And I kind of wasn't sure what I was going to do. I just knew that I needed to get the basic general education stuff done, and I'd figure it out along the way. And I started studying music there and playing in the orchestra, upright bass, and singing, and and then I wound up at this place called California Institute of the Arts, which is a really crazy cool place to go, really expensive, but they had a music technology program there, which was a new thing at the time. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, that's what I want to do. And I did it. And there's a big emphasis at Cal Arts of interdisciplinary collaboration, which is funny because that's what we do when we make games, and any sort of media really is. There's all these different disciplines and we need to collaborate. And so I spent a lot of time hanging around in the film school, even though I was a music student there. And that's where I started to really get into sound design. And, I also did some interactive media projects there with Macromedia Director, which was really kind of a bit mind-numbing, but good practice. I've always been technically inclined, but not a math mind. So, I love reverse engineering things. And I wound up with my first job out of university. And it was a multimedia company, not a game company. I wanted a game company job. I'd been interning at a game company while I was still a student. I did a lot of internships. I got to do lots of cool stuff that way. Just get exposed to things and see how I like being in the environment. I got to hang out with a music editor while The Simpsons show was being scored by a live orchestra, which was insanely cool. I mean, I'm from LA, so there's lots of stuff like that going on. And but yeah, I wound up in this company where I was writing up to like 3-second jingles for shows, which was a real compositional challenge. And it's when I realized I don't actually think I want to be a composer. I thought that might be the path for me, but I was, in my younger days, I was very judgmental about music and very kind of particular, and it's kind of not a good way to be if I'm going to be getting jobs in service of projects, making music for them. But somehow creating sound effects and doing all the other stuff isn't as personal feeling, perhaps. And I don't know if I'm still kind of figuring that part out. It's an interesting element. I could probably do music today because I've learned so much about collaboration and putting my things aside. But so I've been at it for a while. I wound up at Sony Computer Entertainment after working at a different game company. And I'll tell you what, I kept getting jobs because I knew people who were at the company. I think most of the jobs I've gotten is because I've known somebody who I kept in touch with, either from school or from things like this. And in the sound community, where I'm from, there's lots of get-togethers. I mean, there's lots of that online too. It's good to just join up with communities, and I've done a lot of that and just keeping in touch with people. But I was at Sony for almost 9 years, and what got me to New Zealand was Rocketworks in Dunedin. I was the first sound person hired there, and I kind of built a sound studio there. And around right before lockdown, I left there, and I've been freelance for a while, and now I've started my own company as of 2.5 years ago, I think, and I haven't run out of things to do. It's great, and that's probably enough for now. So,
thanks, Paul. Now, as you can see, we've got quite a diverse range of people up here, people that been in the industry for a long time, and also people in the middle, and then people starting their career, so which is important. So we're going to get a little bit of a gauge of who we've got in the room today. Just to be able to get a bit of a feel of, so we can focus our we want this to be a bit more targeted towards the people that we have here. So who here has got more of a composer background? Yeah. Who here is more into sound design itself? Yep. Sound designers. Yeah. Bit of a hands here. What else do we want to ask? Is there anybody here who's like more of a code background, coder side? Yep. Oh, yeah, well, it's a multitask over here. That's always good. That's what we like to see. All right, that's good to know. It's pretty 50-50 really. So it's quite good. All right. So how we're going to be running today is we've got a whole bunch of questions we're just going to be flicking through, and then we'll put it to you guys really and see if any questions from here. We're an open book. It's going to be pretty casual as we are. So without further ado, should we just move on to the first one?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions in the middle, just put up your hand and we'll get someone to give you a microphone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Oh, well, I'll throw this one to Paul. First, what skills or qualifications do you think are most important for someone starting out in game and sound design?
Yeah, it's funny. The first thing I think about is more not even really sound related, but kind of what I was talking about with me when I was in my earlier days. Just maybe being resilient when it comes to feedback and being able to collaborate and learning how to work with other people and being a team player. And because it's funny, like sound is very personal to me. That's why I'm lucky I get to do like something I really love to do. But I spent a lot of my life just doing it for myself. And I think going to school helped me sort of learn a bit of the collaboration thing, but it's a process for me. It's taken time. Some people are better at it than others. So definitely like a collaborative spirit, and also curiosity is a good thing too. I mean, I think if you're really into what you do, you're always wanting to learn new stuff. And in this industry, especially, not just for sound people, I'm always going to suck at something. There's always going to be something that gets put in front of me. I'm going to be like, whoa, I don't know how to do this. But it's really cool to just like, another part of collaboration is just like asking people how they do things, And so, yeah. So I'm not even talking about sound-related stuff.
Yeah, well, I guess, other things and skills and qualifications, just to jump on what you were saying, is a big thing that I've hired for and that I hire for when I pick POC is your soft skills. And it's so important because hard skills you can teach to an extent, but soft skills are what are going to help you communicate, like Paul was saying, communicate towards anybody and working anybody in the game industry. Because as at PicPoc, we don't really call ourselves audio designers. We call ourselves audio ambassadors, because we're more like we're communicating between multiple disciplines and between the audio department and also the tech lead or the artist or the producer. So our main role is communication. So we really are focusing on that. So soft skills are so important. And like Paul was saying, on top of that is learning how to take feedback and embracing feedback and learning to say, hey, this is stuff, let's collaborate together. Let's make this the best thing that we can. Because the skill set in that is understanding that when we're making stuff for games, yes, it is, we're artists, we create this sort of stuff, but it's not for us, it's for the players. So the players, we want to make the best thing for the players. And that's what I would say for me personally when I'm hiring all my staff that I've hired. It's all based around their soft skills first, and then the hard skills, of course, are important, but their soft skills is that collaboration is key. Yeah.
I have to say as well, like I have, because I went to the university here, I have worked with and known some like polymath genius level musicians who have come through the school and the university, but they struggle to get a job in game sound design because they struggle having people criticize their work. So this is like a vital skill to have, is to be able to take criticism well and also work with to spec and to your brief. And then the second thing as well is just for my composers out there, like learning different scale patterns about linear harmony, a little bit of theory is going to help you add color palettes and tools to your toolbox for composing any tune and any style. And you'll have to do a lot of different tunes and a lot of different styles in New Zealand, at least. Yeah.
I thought of another thing maybe that is what happened with me was that I got really interested in all the different types of audio software that are out there, like as in tools that I could use. And and it's not so much learning one thing, but getting good at one particular editor is good, like whether it's Reaper or Pro Tools are the two big ones for me, but there's others out there, as you probably know. But just, finding ways to practice the craft when I haven't had an actual job doing it, which would have been for me getting involved in like mods of games and offering my services for free, which I think I've already heard. So having like a track record of having done projects is a really good skill if you haven't actually worked on a game yet. But if you can say, like, you worked on this mod or even a film, just an ability to put sound on something.
Yeah, multidiscipline is we've spoken about this a lot, is wearing many hats. Like I've done theatre, I've done and film and sound design for constructions in museums. So it's just being able to be on the tools and enjoy yourself and be curious. I think, Paul said that curiosity goes a long way, and any helps you with your creativity in general, just being a curious person. Finn, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, probably on the topic of hard skills, I'd say, like, don't make the mistake I made initially of thinking of just like jumping straight into like trying to get your first job, just assuming that you're gonna be good at sound design just because you have like myself, like coming from a very musical background. I just kind of assumed it would be quite natural, but it turns out that sound design is really like its own language, and there's a lot of the skills. There is a lot of crossover, but yeah, a lot of the skills are very unique. Yeah, that's what I would add. Yeah,
it's a good point. I mean, a lot of us have musical backgrounds and come into sound design, and a lot of composers who come up to me and say, "How do I get into game audio?" The first thing I say is learn sound design, because a lot of us here are sound designers first, and then composers now. Broghan, no, you're a good sound designer, Broghan. I think we might move on to the next question. Just have a nosy. No, at least
we have a question from the...
Oh, question. Hello.
Hello. Are there any other certain softwares that companies look for experience in? I've seen like Unreal and like actual gaming softwares particular.
Or
yeah, you could go out there and grab Unreal or Unity for free and start tinkering around with it. And the audio middleware like Fmod and Wise, the two biggies. The thing that's tricky about that is if you don't have an actual project, like you can only get so far with them, but it's great to actually just open those things up and start seeing. Some of us are more adept at picking up on stuff like that than others. For me, I just open it up and I'm just like, whoa, what is this? And, but when you have a project to work on, people have already started building something in there, and they can show you, here, touch this there and open this file here. And so
game jams.
Yeah.
I'll also add, there is, when I was building my portfolio, there is like a Unity just 3D game demo that I've seen a few people have done this. They've like, you can download the demo. It's like a fully like fleshed out 3D game, and it's already got sound effects, but you can just like rip that all out, implement Fmod WIs and redo it with your own sound and music. And it's like, that's just like a great way to show a wide range of skills, showing like your abilities to use the game engine, to use the middleware, to do sound design, and yeah. Oh, to add to that is to help build up your portfolios is to, like I said, game jams. If you don't know what a game jam is, I tell this to a lot of composers. Basically, it's like 40-hour film fests for games, and you just go in and you join a team, and then you we have various mix of people from who's starting their game development career to experts, and we're all there to just create a game in 48 hours. And the best way to learn is pretty much throw yourself into the fire. I think there's like 3 game jams they have in New Zealand. There's Kiwi Jam. I can't remember any others off the top of my head.
Global Game Jams.
Global Game Jam. So yeah, just search for that, jump in and meet a whole bunch of people, because these people are all in the industry, or they want to be in the industry, or they might start their own company and go, hey, remember that sound design or that composer we used for that game jam? And this is where you start to build your contacts and start building people and meeting people in the industry, because they'll remember you and they'll remember that awesome person who did that thing for us. So yeah, there's game jams. game jams. Right, next question. There you go. What tools or software do you recommend for someone looking to build their portfolio?
Literally just answered.
We just answered that one. So yeah, Fmod is one that we use at Pickpock. But like I said, game jams, get into that sort of stuff, and like no DAW is wrong. Whatever you're using is the best thing for you, and there's no right or wrong way of making music. So just get in there and make it. And
Reaper's a pretty common one at the moment
Yeah.
too, by the way. Yeah, Reaper is really customizable as well, so a lot of studios like to use it.
Yeah, I agree that while it's true, any DAW that is the best DAW, but Reaper, I ended up switching from Ableton to Reaper because it actually speeds up your workflow a lot in the ways that it's kind of designed more for the purpose of sound design and batch exporting files, etc.
There you go.
Another thing I thought of looking at this slide that may not seem related, but it's good to have a particular video editing application that you're familiar with, because when you want to make sound for games, very often you're going to be working with video as reference from the game to put your sound against, and you might be delivered video files, but it's good to have an understanding of video codecs and capturing video, but then when you're making your reel too. If you want to put it together yourself, then, and I like DaVinci Resolve lately for that purpose, but there's all kinds of stuff just like DAWs.
And it's free. Yeah. And for the record, we use Logic at work at Pickpock as well, just mainly because when I started, I used Logic, and now everyone has to use Logic. We have a question.
How do you deal with conversions and file conflicts in terms of I've been in game jams before where some people are using Logic, some people are using Ableton, and everyone wants to share files, and I sit there oh shit, because they don't. You have to render stuff.
You sort of need to establish the deliverables requirements, and then if whatever they're using, it doesn't matter. I just need a 16-bit 48 kilohertz wave file, and either stereo or mono depending on how you use it. If you kind of put specs up for people to adhere to, that helps.
More if some people are using Pro Tools, some people are using Reaper, and sharing files and projects and stuff.
Yeah.
You just have to suck up and go, fine, I'll use Pro Tools again.
Well, one way I get around that is that if someone's using a different DAW than I am and they're sharing content with me, one way they can do it is I have a guy that uses Reaper mostly, and I was doing a Pro Tools project where I had to use it, and so I would have he had Pro Tools as well, and what he would do is spit out stems of what he did. So then that's platform or DAW agnostic. You just take stems, and there might be a minute of silence, maybe not a minute, depends on the sound, but we would all start from the same frame for covering. He might be covering footsteps on a thing, and this is a cinematic that I'm thinking of. But anyway, so stems is a really great way to get around that, just because then you pull that into your DAW. But somebody might want to decide who's the master. The master session might need to be one person, and then everyone else is sending in. So
we counted this at Pickpock. I mean, I joked about how we use Logic, and now I made everyone use Logic. But there's a reason for that, is that each one of my sound designers and composers, we clone of each other's. So any one of us can open up a project and then jump straight into it. And then we have we try and set some standards on how we like a session set out, so everybody understands. Because the idea is that any one of my sound designers should be able to jump into a session and be able to pick up exactly where they left off, which is extremely important when you're working in a company of 220 people, and you need to be able to jump in. Oh, we need to jump on this, and then say, I'm sick for 2 weeks, and then Broghan needs to jump in and boost out some stems. So and making sure that that's important, that we're unifying. All right. Oh, we have a question. We have a question from Chris.
One more question, sorry. When you're reviewing portfolios, is there any mistakes that are really recurring? The sort of stuff you see people submit and be like, here's my show reel. What are the things that it's just I wish people knew about that?
It's thanks. We're going to answer that one, but we might as well jump into it now. The first thing that I always get is make sure your links work. That's the first thing. Honestly, when we we'll put out for a job, and we'll get hundreds of emails that come on, and then you just click on the link for their portfolio and it doesn't even work. That's the first thing that I would say, because that goes straight into the bin. Unfortunately, we've get so many people that come through, so that'll be my first, making sure that your link works. And Yeah, it's a good question in regards to portfolios. Brogan's just recently put one together. Do you want to speak to yours?
Yeah, a lot of people that get into us don't actually send us reels. So make reels and send them in that show a diverse range of skills across UI, across like footstep systems, maybe composers, whatever you're doing, like whatever the most diverse range of skills you have, put that in your reel so people can see all the kinds of stuff that you can do. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Anyone else want to add on portfolios?
I've been sent reels sometimes where I can't tell what the person's actually trying to show.
Yeah.
Mainly it's music versus sound effects. If you do both, that's great, but I feel like it's best to separate the two when you're demonstrating things. Like you could do a reel with everything together, but do one that's just music and another one that's just sound effects.
Yeah.
And even I've heard people, I swear I've been sent things where everything in the reel wasn't created by the person, but some things were, and that's gets a little dicey too. I'd say it's better to have less stuff and just cover one element, even if there's other things that should have sound. But a good thing to do is communicate that, like have some text that goes along with your reel to explain what you're showing. You might put words on the screen if you know how to do that in your video editor, like this is what I did. And another thing I just thought of that I've really enjoyed that I've seen people do is video capture of how they've set sounds up in something like Wise, where they just kind of hover over and show you like, here's a container, here's all the random choices I've set up, just a real quick overview, and then they run the game and show how the sounds are playing back in the game. It's really a cool way to show off that you can make things play in a game.
I've got a funny story about that actually. We had a sound designer who applied for a role and he got the job. Spoiler alert. Tim Donnan, excellent sound designer, he came in for the first interview and he didn't know Fmod at all. But he was a great sound designer. He had great soft skills and a great personality. And I said to him, look, we like you and we want to get you in for another interview, but you need to learn Fmod. You need to learn the way that we do things and what this is as an instrument. And 2 weeks later, the day before his interview, he sent me an email with a link to 2 YouTube videos of him explaining Fmod and talking about the in-depths and then a project that he did it in and how he linked it all up. And so yeah, that's one way to get our attention, I guess, I like to call it the engineer mindset, or the modern term for it is growth mindset, which is engineer mindset is if I don't know how to do it, I'm going to work out how to do it. And that follows that curiosity aspect as well. If you're looking at something and you're wanting to do something, be curious and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn. So then another thing, just to answer that question, is the email that you send to us is also important, because we're just remembering that we're humans. When we're humans at the other end, you'll be quite surprised about the amount of emails that we'll get. It'll be like, check out my Spotify, and then click on that, and that's all it is, right? So just remembering that, hey, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, who you are as a person, and we want to get to know you. So when you're applying for roles and with your portfolio, just tell us in the email a little bit about you and who you are as a person. I think we had one the other day who wrote it completely as I am a lonely traveller amongst the elves and
This was great.
It was the best email I've ever had, ever. And I must thwart thee and talk to thee about this, and I must have my audio. And it was like fantastic email, great portfolio. Now I've remembered who this person is, and now they're in my folder, and when I need another sound designer, I will be contacting this person. I'm not saying you all need to be scholars and write this out for us every time, but just, reaching out and understand that we're human beings as well, and we want to talk to you. So, yeah, be nice, because we do get follow-up emails, which I've had in the past, they've applied for a role, and they didn't make the cut. And then we'll get a follow-up email of them abusing us, and
it's not going to work.
That's not going to get you a job either. No. So it's just be kind, be a kind person.
While we're switching slides, I just thought of something else. We're talking about gear, good things to learn, and I don't know if we have this in any of our slides, but if you don't own a device that you can record sounds with, I highly recommend owning just any little kind of Zoom stereo recording device with built-in mics is a great starting point, and start learning how to record sounds that you need and pull those into your software, because there's sound libraries you can buy, but it's also a skill to record and learn how to capture what you're looking for. So just real quick.
How do you stay up to date with the latest trends and technologies in game sound design? Anybody?
I'll start. Play lots of games. That's a pretty obvious one, but play lots of games, play new games that come out, listen critically to the systems that they're building, think about how you can create those in your DAW and try some of them yourself.
Goes back to being curious again, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Possibly there's an online community called Earwiggles that I frequent, and it's just like a great place for people to share what they're working on and share news about sound design, and yeah, I'd highly recommend trying to like find a community, basically. Yeah. What about you?
My mind just went blank. But yeah, online communities for sure. There's so many. Airwiggles is great. Boy, there was something I was going to say about this. It'll come back.
Just talking to each other as well. We're often sharing a lot of stuff amongst each other, and how'd you do that? That was cool. I think one of the things we do as well is that we forget a lot of things too. So sometimes it's nice to be reminded on how to do things. So, yeah, Paul?
So I've been mostly working on games that used Unreal, and whenever there's a new release of Unreal, there are release notes that list all the features, and I hit Control F sound, and every time the word sound is mentioned, I read that part. Then I do Control F audio, Control F music, and I basically just scour the entire document. I go, oh, okay, there's some new stuff, and that's the engine I work in. You could probably do the same thing in any game engine when there's release notes, and that's a good way to keep abreast of that. And there's actually it used to be called Unreal Slackers Discord channel. I forget, they changed the name to something less fun for some reason now, but great place to go. This guy Dan Reynolds, who is at Epic, just is in there answering questions all day. I don't know how he does any work, but that's a good way in a particular platform to keep track.
Nice. For my female identifying sound designers and composers as well, there is also Sound Girls, which is like a kind of online community for female identifying people who work in music. And that also includes people who work in games. So definitely check out some of their content too. They also have like online conferences and stuff, which you can attend for either very cheap or free. Yeah, which I do recommend.
What key elements should be included in sound designers' portfolio and when applying to game companies or seeking clients? The differences between them and the two. Did you write this, Chris? You must have.
I think we've kind of talked about what elements should be included in the portfolio.
Yeah.
I would just say make an implementation reel as well would be the only thing I'd add to that. But are there differences? What do you guys reckon are the differences between being a contractor and applying to a workplace?
I reckon if you're applying as a contractor for a studio that is making a specific type of game, it's good to have a portfolio that shows that you are skilled in sound design for that style of game and are interested in working on that kind of game. Whereas I guess if you're applying for a larger studio that does a wider variety like Pickpock, it might be better to have a portfolio which showcases a wider range.
I'd say that's correct. Like,
Absolutely.
that's what I do with my portfolio. Because we've got like 28 games or something.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few and a vast number of different like genres and styles. So for us, we want people who are able to compose as well as sound design because we have a really small team and a lot of games that we make. So a diverse range of skills is pretty essential on your portfolio if you were to apply it to us.
Yeah, just on that, in regards to looking at the company that you're applying for and what they're doing and tailoring it to the company that you're sending it to or to the people you're sending it to, I think is important, because if there's a company that's making cat games and you're sending zombies being torn apart, it's not going to fit. So, these are things that we got to think about, even though that is pretty much a day-to-day at PickPock. One in the morning, we'll be doing zombies being torn apart, and in the afternoon, we're creating cat choirs. So, it's diversity. That's key. How important is networking in this industry? Particularly as it pertains to getting contract work, and what advice do you have to young sound designers trying to build connections? Young sound designers, is there what is important to networking? I think, well, first of all, yes, absolutely, 100. I think we've mentioned it. Thank you. We've mentioned it a lot, how important these conferences are, because all of us have got work from people we know. So it's important, so important. We've got the 10-minute call, so we're actually going to throw questions out to the audience, shall we? I reckon we should do that. We're going to throw it out to the audience here, if there's anybody else that'd like to answer questions. If not, we can keep flicking through. One over here.
Thank you. Hey, folks. I guess more of like a tech or workflow question, just a curiosity, just because it came up and it's sort of involved in some of the projects I work with. But when you guys are doing sound design or composition and you're working with like libraries or plugins or certain audio things, since I assume you want to have some sort of kind of unified sonic identity technologically between all of the devices you work with, do you guys like have that stuff on a network drive and you like pull from that between all the machines, or do you sort of like everyone that works with your stuff kind of pulls from a common set of resources or something? Like, do you guys have a system for that, or just curious?
Sorry, is this in context of our DAWs or
I guess it could apply to that as well. I mean,
yeah,
it could be like VSTs or sound libraries, stuff for DAW and production as well as
right.
games.
So we have repositories that we have set up. Is that?
I kind of feel like you're asking more than one question, because it sounds like part of the question is about how do you maintain a consistent sound where there's multiple players making things for the game, and you want to make sure everybody's sort of in the
I guess universe. It would be more specifically about in terms of like how you guys manage the resources and distribute those across the sound people rather than the sonic identity.
Okay, so it's a technical question on how everyone can be pulling from the same source. Well, I mean, I've been lucky enough to work at places like Sony PlayStation, where we had a network-based sound library that was massive, and we all just connected over fiber to that. So that obviously was consistency, although there were so many sounds in there, so that's one thing.
So we have our own huge portfolio of sounds that we have on our what's called P drive or T drive that we have. But I think one step back from that is actually, before we're even working on a title, which is very important, is we're establishing the tone of the game. So we spend months and months establishing that tone. And when we're working with other sound designers, I don't really mind where they get their sounds from. Legally, of course, they need to get it from, as long as it's matching the overall tone of what we're building. So a lot of my sound designers have their own libraries. We often share libraries. We often share material and stuff like that. But as long as it's matching the tone of what we're designing and what we're trying to do, and that's kind of my role as an audio director at PickPock, is the tone keeper, to making sure that we're keeping consistency amongst it. So Into the Dead 2, which is, we've had 15 DLCs for that now over the last 5 years, and maintaining the consistent tone through that with different sound designers and different people. It's been, it's actually, we haven't talked about it here, but it's actually one of the key elements of being a successful sound designer, is being able to match tone and being able to look at a game and go, I see what they've done here, and then replicate that. It's important in art as well, when you're employing artists, that they're able to be able to duplicate mass amount of art that's exactly in tone with what's going on. It's as important in audio. This is something that we talk about and we discuss a lot in pre-production. So like often in the past, I'm rambling a bit, but we've had a audio's just tacked on at the end. Like they make a game, they go, we need audio. find an audio designer. But now these days, like, we're in pre-production, we're at the very start, we're building the worlds with them and creating the tone. We'll spend months and months and months working out what we're trying to do, and then we have what's called a keystone. We create a keystone track, and that is after months of writing, and that keystone song becomes our tone keeper. And we do that with sound design as well. So we'll do a video, for example, will be of a demo reel or whatever it may be, or maybe a very early version of the game, and then we create the soundscape and sound design on that video, and that becomes our tone keeper. That is the absolute peak that we need to have, and that does change over time. It's an evolving document, as we call it, but it's so to maintain consistency, it's more about the mindset and the tone that you're looking at, and having those tone keepers or those keystone things to make sure that you're always referring back to it. I don't care what you're using to get there, as long as it's legal, and creating that. Yeah. Any more questions? Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Blair.
Hello. So my question it goes out to both veterans and newbies to the industry as well. But I just wanted to ask, this is kind of leading more towards what we were talking about in the beginning, but do you guys have any like practices that you take into place for, I guess, helping you take that criticism and take what you might have put a lot of time into, just, I guess, something that helps you, I guess, detract yourself a little bit from the situation, or just like, I guess, not take it so personally and actually like look at it properly to help you like make it the thing that.
Good question, Blair. Good question. Anybody here want to speak to that? How to take criticism and feedback?
That's a tricky one. It really depends on what bothers you specifically. But the first thing that popped in my head was, it's how to communicate in that context. And there are times where you just kind of can't figure out what somebody's looking for. Like you keep trying and they just keep not being happy. And I find in those situations, the best thing for me has been, or one of them has been, to ask them, do they have examples of what sounds good in the context of what they're looking for? Can they show us like something from a film or a TV show or a game? And just, what is it? And it's funny because the more you go around with somebody who you're going to be working with for a while like that, you start to establish a way of communicating. And it's often, it depends on the person. And so, it's communication again. But it's good to not take it personally. It depends how sensitive you are. I'm very sensitive, so I've had to grow a little bit there. So,
just to add to that, Paul, is the best way to help with the feedback is to be welcoming at the very start of the process, and also to get as much information as you can at the start before you. So you might want to make sure you're not in a spot where you're soloing yourself and writing all this stuff, and then you present this masterpiece and you're like, that's not even close to what we want. So making sure that you're at the start asking the right questions, you're talking to the right people who are going to be offering the feedback that you have. So we have a thing called selective feedback givers, and that we know that they're the core leads of the team. They're the people that we are talking to the most, and at the very start we're communicating, and then at the end that kind of helps negate a lot of the stuff down the end.
I think you're talking about what I was just thinking, which is another good thing to do is don't go too long on something before you let them hear it. I'm a very big fan of doing an alpha pass and getting sounds on everything that is needed. And I tell the developer, look, I'm not trying to make stuff sound good. Often they're like, this is fine, leave it. I'm like, no, wait. But, do an alpha pass and then do what I call a rough pass or a first pass. And often my rough or first pass is the sound, but I'm giving myself permission to go back and change it if I need to. You know what I mean? The opposite is to spend days and days on something and go, finally, I nailed it. And my client hasn't heard it yet. And then they hear it and they're just like, what is this?
Yeah.
That hurts more. So you show things early when you're just getting started, because then you're getting feedback and then you're getting a direction before you go too far on your own.
Yeah,
So.
we have a bit of a saying at PickPock, well, in the audio department, good enough. And what we mean by that is that if you keep striving for just being good enough, that means you're finishing things as well. So this happens when you're writing music. This happens in art at all, in all art. Is if it's good enough, and then move on, and eventually your good enough will be everyone else's excellence. So if you'll keep doing good enough, then you'll get there. Yeah.
Another funny type of feedback a client will give me sometimes is I'll say, this sound really sucks, I need to replace it, and they'll say, well, we haven't had any complaints from the players. And I'm like, oh, okay, so that's how I'm going to base my sound design off. Is there a complaint? No, good enough.
All right. We have another question. Hello.
Yeah, how do you deal with, like, especially when you're just starting out, the, like, licensing and all that kind of stuff? Just explaining why I'm asking. I got really lucky when I was in uni because someone asked me if I do sound, like, it was about 20 minutes of audio, and they were going to give me $300, and I was just so excited to have money. But one of the lecturers saw the messages and was like, holy shit, he wants exclusive rights. And you're not going to be able to put your name on this ever again. This can't go in your portfolio. How do you navigate that, all that kind of nightmare shit?
Yeah. That's most game companies, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending who you're working with, that's what they need. They need to have exclusive rights.
And that makes sense.
So
like,
the idea is, this is something that we're navigating a lot. And Burn My Records, our label, was something that we can advise on this sort of thing. Is every company's different that you're working with, every situation's different. So, we can happy to talk to you after this and give you some advice. But as a golden rule, working for indie or bigger companies like us, like Pickpock or anything like that, and you're working for them, you look at it in about per minute of audio. What did we discuss? Like
It's like $1,000
$1,000 per minute of audio.
Minute of completed audio.
Yeah. So
This is music, right?
yeah,
Music-wise.
music side of stuff. So for music,
was
it's $1,000
music.
per minute delivered is a rough guide that you want to be looking at.
Also talk to APRA AMCOS. APRA AMCOS is your PRO for New Zealand and Australia. It's your performance rights organisation. So if you are entitled to mechanical rights from your performance, they'll ensure that that is paid to you.
Yeah.
So chat to
Sweet.
APRA AMCOS.
It is. Yeah, it's still murky. This area. Often when the best thing to do is be open and communicate with the people that are saying, hey, can I still use this in my portfolio? Can I still use this as a thing? Can I still use this? Most of the time they're going to say yes. They're getting a really good deal. So
Say no, ask for more money.
Just say you can also. There's also deals that you can go into that. Hey, this is you guys. You can use this whatever you want, but I promise not to use this for any other project. But I still need to be able to promote myself. I still need to be able to use this on SoundCloud. I still need to be able to do this, and you can set up deals with them that you can own the rights, but can I keep the Spotify's? There's a lot of stuff that you can do. It's just talking to them, being open and communicating.
I know that now, which like makes sense and stuff. So yeah, thank you. No, at the time he didn't even want like me to have credit, which was like fuck. Yeah.
Wow.
Should we
Get to us
jump
afterwards.
into the last?
Sad face.
I think it's like we're sort of a little bit over time. So
Last slide.
Yep.
I feel like the last slide was something we wanted to. Oh, resources.
That one there was if you could go back to start your career, what would it do? And my quick one is wear earplugs.
yeah.
Yes. And don't keep headphones on your head for extended periods. Take lots of breaks. Headphones are very dangerous.
No,
That was the last question that we had. The last slide is the audio.
that's it.
All right.
Right. Yeah. So wear earplugs because protect your ears. It's tinnitus is bad. Thank you very much. It's been wonderful talking to you.
Thank you.
Broghan, Finn, and Paul, and myself, Jade. Come talk to us. We're always here to talk to you. Bye.